Joining us now, member of the House Foreign Affairs and Oversight Committees, my good friend, Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett. So, Congressman Burchett, what do you make of President Trump's trip to Saudi Arabia?
I call it an extreme victory lap, Matt. I think they respect him and they fear him economically. You know, everybody talks about America's military might, and you represented one of the largest military installations in the country, but that should be our last option. Our first option, which Trump understands, is economics. And he's over there. I believe that they'll probably be talking nuclear energy, the small nuclear reactors. They're going to talk AI. You know, and I think Iran's already said, you know, warned them of doing that, of cutting some deal or something. And I think it just puts Iran behind the 8 ball. And I really think that Trump is on the world stage where he does it his best, and the world is watching, and the stock market is too, obviously.
It is something that the stock market went into the black for this year of Trump after all of the panicans had their moment. It seems those who bought the dip did pretty well. President Trump did surprise many when he announced today in Saudi Arabia that there would no longer be sanctions on Syria. How do you think about Syria, Congressman Burchett, and do you support President Trump's decision to order the removal of their sanctions?
I think that, you know, I think we should have limited involvement in other people's, in other countries and their messes. But, you know, Syria hasn't been a very good friend to us, but I think I do trust President Trump in his dealings with them. And I believe this brings them to the table, and he understands it, and excuse me, and they understand it. So on face value, I do support it, but I think Trump is the classic trust but verify kind of guy. If they screw him over, he'll come back with as we say in East Tennessee, a warp your head off hold.
I think the neocons might be going a little nuts over this trip, because the fever dream of the neocons was to draw us into some war with Iran. That's what the think tanks have been paid to push in a lot of cases and the like. And now you have President Trump doing this big diplomatic trip uniting the Sunni Arab countries of the Gulf against Iran, not with shots fired, but with smart trade deals, with mutual investment. And at the same time, you've got the Houthis saying that they don't want to mess with international shipping and they don't want to be bombed anymore. Do you think that the cessation of hostilities with the Houthis combined with this diplomatic flex makes war with Iran less likely?
I do, 100% do, and because I think it also shows the incredible support that President Trump has. We had a meeting last week with King Abdullah, and and we stressed with him that very fact that we don't need any more wars with Iran. And I don't think those folks like us want to send their boys and girls into any more wars. They'd rather sit at home and make money. And I think mutually, this is going to be economically beneficial to both countries, or to both groups, and especially to America, because what's always happened in the past. Joe Biden, he'd write a strong letter of whatever, and now you're seeing the Israelis. They're at the table with some of these folks, and you're seeing your pieces breaking out. President Trump. Yeah, look, let's be honest. If this was Obama, he'd be getting his third Nobel Peace Prize. They'd already be dusting it off. And Joe Biden, well, they can tell him he's got as I always used to say when he'd walk into a room, hey, there's no ice cream party here for me. But I think, the world media ignores Trump, but the people of the world respect him. And frankly, they fear him a little bit, and they should.
Going from the world back to stateside, right now the House of Representatives is working hard to assemble the big, beautiful bill. Different committees are making their contributions or suggestions. One of the big fights going on is over the Medicaid program. And we've heard some lawmakers say that there should be no changes to Medicaid. Others have suggested that it be capped and sent to the states to run. Where do you see the votes overall on the reconciliation bill? And how are you approaching this question about Medicaid spending?
I hope that we look at able-bodied folks have to apply for a job or have to get some kind of work. I just think that's just fair. And I think most of America agrees with that. And the folks that don't agree probably don't vote anyway. So it really wouldn't matter with them. But you know as well as I do, everybody's up there. Everybody's, tough. They're big dogging it on the House floor, talking about where they're going to be. I was sitting there on Center's Row last week or 2 weeks ago, and there's some usual suspects behind me rattling their sabers about how tough they were going to be. And they said, Burchett, where are you? Why aren't you in this conversation? I said, boys, this is like an NBA basketball game. You can waste your time, watch the whole thing. I'm just going to watch the last 2 minutes, and that's when you'll hear me shouting from the bench. Because these, Trump calls them, the speaker calls them in the office, and then they all start quaking. You and I have been there, and we've held up to the pressure many times.
I totally agree with you, but bring us to the last 2 minutes, Congressman Burchett. What are going to be the issues that really in those last final moments seal the fate of this legislative package? Is it going to be the spending cuts? Is it going to be the SALT issue, the state and local tax deduction? What do you see being like the final piece?
I think it's a combination thereof. SALT is definitely a linchpin with a lot of folks on our side and the more liberal sides. I keep saying, why do I want to compensate New York and New Jersey for bad decisions? States like Florida and Tennessee don't have an income tax. We put good people in office. We don't put ridiculous rules and regulations on our people. And yet they do up there, and then they expect the rest of the country to subsidize it. I don't know if that's going to be a beach to die on. And when you're out talking in America, they don't really talk about those things. They just want to see reductions. And I too would like to see that. But eventually, I think, as well as I do, it'll be down to 1 or 2 people, and I'll probably be in that mix. And then I'll have to make my decision then. But, I appreciate all my colleagues, but as well as I do, well, they'll start peeling off, and then you'll look around and just be a couple of you standing there.
Well, last question for you, Congressman. I know that what drives your thinking as your seatmate for many years is indeed the deficit and the debt and those spending cuts. And we toiled for years to try to get Congress to show some vigor in that fight, and it took Elon Musk and DOGE to get people understanding the fraud, waste, and abuse at USAID, seeing how the lack of technology adoption was causing all these Social Security checks to be sent out to people who had died decades ago. Are you confident that this bill that the House is about to vote on will carry with it that spirit of DOGE, will ensconce those reductions in spending into law so that the bureaucracy doesn't just snap back? No, I don't. I don't have any confidence in that at all. And I think people are telling President Trump the opposite of what's in it. And in classic Donald Trump fashion, I think he will, in wrestling terms, at the end of the match, come off the top turnbuckle and put a hurt on some people, because I think that they're misleading America, and they're trying to mislead Donald Trump, and I think that's going to be a pretty tough argument. There's a lot of things in there that we said we were going to take out and are still in there, and as well as I do, the K Street lobbyists have these chairmen and the staff members mostly, and we'll see. But I'm looking forward to when President Trump engages, because there's a lot of things in there I hope that he removes. Trump off the top turnbuckle. That is what Congressman Tim Burchett is calling for. Thank you so much for joining me, my friend. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Matt. Miss you, brother.
Hey folks, Matt Gaetz here, host of The Matt Gaetz Show. Want to catch every episode of my primetime talk show? Just sign up for the OAN Live app and join me Monday through Friday, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, for real news, real talk, and the behind-the-scenes info that you want. Stay informed, stay engaged. Go to live.oann.com. That's live.oann.com. Sign up today. Tune in every weeknight.